Business, Manju Bariji. It's the 27th of April, and of course another business day. Of course, we anticipate that all us come the best. Yes, of course, it's quite a little bit rainy. It started all the way early, very early in the morning, and hope of course some sort of work has been disrupted, most especially for the traders in there, of course delaying to go back and open your shops. But of course we anticipate all the best for the day. As the day probably goes on, you never know, everything will go very, very fine. But I hope you're doing great. Yes, how ready are you for the other business day? This is your daily Kickstarter Smart Means Business, where I will bring you the latest information regarding business. You wake up in the morning as you get to know what's transpiring, what's happening around the world, and of course most especially getting to understand what's happening within your local area. That's quite also very key when it comes to building a resilient business in there. But of course we have quite lots of discussions coming up, and the markets on the Zambia platform, don't forget, they will be opening at 8:15 a.m. and they will be closing at 3:15 p.m. Effect Monday to Friday. Start292 hashes the USSD code in there. With Zabu, a platform from Oltex, which just made your trading experience much more easy and friendly. Start292 hash, as you'll be available with quite lots of options. You can choose to buy government bonds and securities for as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings, but definitely you can invest more, but that's just the minimum requirement. That is, inquired of you to do that, and life will be made much more easy. There is next year, that's why you shouldn't own government bonds and securities. Zabu just made this a reality and a possibility for every person in all categories, in all calibers, and this will be made quite very possible. Zabu says my money, my future, and Oltex East Africa says do something new. Now heading straight into our very first update, let's get into this discussion. Definitely I'll be returning for further analysis in relation to this very update. Good morning.
Our sector players will be trained, and we already started with this training. We have our partners. CBI is here. They already a month ago trained over 50 of the tour operators in Uganda. And we will continue with the training to improve on the standard of the destination, with certification as well to ensure compliance and global recognition. Cycling back to Fawate, I'm happy to note that the event has grown in leaps. This year, we are delighted to welcome over 150 exhibitors, including tourism boards and associations from the regions, to interact with our local suppliers for the benefit of tourism. While the World Tourism and Travel Council projects that the global tourism sector is at 65% of the pre-COVID pandemic arrival, full recovery of the sector is expected in 2023 and beyond. Therefore, this year's Expo Fawate, the 7th edition, will not point to our recovery, but also highlights our readiness to host the tourism community once again. I also take this opportunity to welcome our distinguished guests, the hosted buyers, 100 of them that we invited, who are here with us, and they are majorly from our core source market of Africa, and some of them are from South Africa. Any from South Africa? Thank you. From Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Egypt. And out of Africa, we have from the German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, United Kingdom, United States of America. We have some from Italy and Spain. They are here to explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, and for them to include our destination in their African itineraries in the next few months. That way, Uganda will receive more travelers and tap into its associated benefits, including increased tourism revenue and employment.
I think the major thing that we need to do, and Uganda has done it today, is the Pearl of Africa, is to have the magical Kenya, is to have the Caribbean, the Queen of Rwanda, and all those events where a very particular specific session is devoted to investors, foreign investors. So those are the key elements I think I can talk about in terms of investment in the tourism sector in East Africa. So if I go one by one quickly, when we talk about incentives, for example, what do we want to mean? Unfortunately, I don't have the figures for now, but roughly speaking, incentives means facilitation of foreign investors to come and invest, ensuring that the cost of investment for them is not that very high, and ensuring that wherever they invest, there are those
hosting tourism in Uganda, and of course the 7th Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo, which is one of government's plans, that is to boost investment in various tourist sectors, including safaris, lodging, handicrafts, and so many others related to the tourism industry. Now, maximizing the potential of sustainable tourism development, Uganda can now draw that is more tourists, create jobs, and generate funds while conserving that is natural resources and supporting local communities at the same time. Now, of course, yesterday investors and tourism stakeholders met and discussed regarding these matters at the expo. So, more of that will be, we shall be giving you the updates regarding promoting tourism in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, and a country with quite lots of rich tourism attraction potentials, which need to be really made much more visible to the entire world, just in case some people don't know. Well, now away from that, now let's cross over to what's happening in the press, in the print media. And of course, as always, I have the New Vision and the Daily Monitor with me this morning. And now we're going to have a review of what's really transpiring. And some of it could be in the social aspect, it could be in the economic aspect, of course, regardless. But at the end of the day, it has some sort of impact on either way, that is on either sides. Now, of course, kicking off with the New Vision now, taking a look at the top page here, we see subjects for primary school to be reviewed. Yes, subjects for primary schools to be reviewed. And of course, a review approved for next financial year. That's according to the First Lady. Yes, and of course, as I prepare to take a look inside the New Vision, quite as we take a look at what's transpiring. Now, of course, we take a look at the Sudan crisis. Of course, Sudan crisis could suck in neighbors. That's according to the ambassador. Now, according to the look of things, it might spread to other countries, according to what they are saying here. Of course, you'll be getting the details. What are those possible neighbors that could be affected by the crisis? You'll be finding out more of that into the New Vision this morning. And of course, now the anti-homosexual bill bounced back to the members of parliament. Checking out here what is really transpiring and what does it mean for the country Uganda when it comes to preserving the social and the cultural values of the country. More of that, you'll be finding it out that in the New Vision here. Yes, the anti-gay bill back to the parliament. The president said it should be taken back to the parliament for further review. Well, now still here. Subjects for primary schools to be reviewed. Of course, the First Lady and the Minister of Education and Sports, that is Mrs. Janet Museveni, has announced that the review of the primary, that is school level curriculum, will start effective this very year. Well, quite very interesting. What are those new adjustments that are going to be made as a result of this? You'll be checking out that more into the New Vision here. Of course, we see the Parliament eulogizes Muhakanizi. Of course, Parliament has paid tribute to late Keith Muhakanizi, the former permanent secretary for the office of the Prime Minister and a long-serving bureaucrat in the Finance Ministry. Well, you'll be finding out more of that into your copy of the New Vision. Now, the manufacturers, civil society organizations reject tax depas. Of course, the Tax Justice Alliance Uganda and, of course, and the Uganda Manufacturers Association have opposed, that is to a move by government to end the value-added tax. Why? Well, more of those details into your copy of the New Vision as you get these daily updates regarding that. Now, still further, as we take a look at what's making business into the New Vision, Norway commits 35 billion. Yeah, 35 billion Ugandan shillings, rather. That is for child rights. So, well, that's quite an amount of money, and we believe it's going to be quite very key and influential to impact this country in a certain way. Okay, and now still here, we see state prosecutors to get tax waiver, that is on salary. Of course, the state attorneys from the Office of the Director of the Public Prosecutions, of course, will effectively, that is starting July 1st, yes, they will receive tax-free salaries. And that is the Director of Public Prosecutors, that is Jen Francis Bodo, said regarding that very matter. I think that's quite, well, it could be something that might be good news for them to hear that. Tax-free salaries. Well, now contestants here, gear up for, of course, quite lots of in here. Well, I won't get into much of that. It's more of social related. And, well, now away from that, we take a look at Uganda's Global Tourism Expo starts in high gear. Now, the International Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo kicked off in the high gear yesterday at the Speak Resort Munyonyo in Kampala. And of course, that's been our update number one. Uganda being the Pearl of Africa, but despite all that, lots of work needs to be done to keep that status valid. It has to be made alive, in other words. So such expos are quite very influential, and they bring together all the people that are participating, that is in the tourism sector, all the different stakeholders, participants, you know, tour guides, businesses, all related, all coming down to the tourism. Well, now still here, we take a look at the court dismisses cryptocurrency case that is against the Bank of Uganda. Now, the High Court in Kampala has dismissed an application that is filed by the advocate against the Bank of Uganda. Well, we'll be checking out more of the details regarding this very, very, very story. Court dismisses cryptocurrency case against the Bank of Uganda. What does it entail? And what is the details of this case in particular? That's quite a very important question to ask yourself. What is the case about? Well, still driving your business on your daily Kickstarter as we take a look at what's happening in the press. Now, taking a look at the comment section here, we see that release funds for newly recruited teachers. We'll be checking out that. That's quite a very interesting aspect to review. And also, somebody here says, stop waiting for eggs to hatch or nuts to fall off a tree. That's all. These are quite poetic. Now we're talking the parish development model in this incident. Okay. Still here, promoting golden ICT to bridge gender digital divide. I guess that's quite a very important aspect to also review. And quite, you know, and life will be really efficient, most especially when it comes to the economy of Uganda. Of course, now here we see, still in the comment section, somebody tells you that stay away from electric power lines. Very dangerous, and I know majority of you probably still young and out of ignorance. You play along, but it's not something worthy a test from that line. Now, still here, we take a look at MK leadership, change in continuity. And that is General Moses Kainerugaba, of course, laying wreaths at the monument in honor of slain NASA cadres in Kabale. We'll be checking out more of that. Okay. Now, of course, still here, we take a look at asset financing and leasing at the same time. they are good for government and small and intermediary enterprises. Asset financing and leasing, quite a very key aspect here when it comes to managing the small and intermediary enterprises in Uganda in particular. Well, 18 minutes past 7, as of course still getting into shortly. We shall be getting into other related discussions. But for now, I'm done with the new vision. Now let's cross over and take a look at what's happening in the Daily Monitor. Of course, we see the United States, U.S. targets AIDS cash cut over anti-gay law. United States, of course, targeting AIDS cash cut over anti-gay law. Now, that is quite very scary for the nation of Uganda. Now, of course, taking a look at the overall here, we see that the state of unemployment in Uganda, with the country with a population of about 45 million people. Now, Uganda has a working population, out of the 45 million people, Uganda has a working population of 23.5 billion people out of the country of estimated 45 million. Now, still breaking this further, of course, the working age in this country, lying in between the working age group comprises of citizens aged, and that is the age 14 to 64 years according to government's definition, and 60% inactive. Can you imagine? That's quite very tricky. 60% inactive, and percentage of unemployed Ugandans not actively looking for a job. So there is those that are actively looking for jobs and those that have actually given up, and 60% have given up and they're not looking for jobs but qualified. So that's so worrying for the country. Of course, 4.4 million not in education, Ugandans who belong to not in education, not in employment, and are not being trained at the same time. So they're unskilled. That's about 4.4 million. And unemployed, so Ugandans who are eligible to work but cannot find, of course, anything to do. Now, here we're discovering the states where the discussion here on the top page is regarding the state of unemployment in the country. Unemployed, that's about 12.2%, and these are people that are qualified and eligible and competent, but they can't find what to do. So that is the country Uganda for you here. Now, the employed, only 10 million out of the 23.5 million capable of Ugandans have a job to do. So you see that? So the unemployed are more than the employed by quite a range as we keep further in this discussion. So that is the state, but of course the details, you will get the copy of the Daily Monitor as you take a look to see what is happening there. Of course, now back Sudan here, we see how Uganda rescued 200 nationals. How did that happen? The Daily Monitor has a copy, has a story for you in relation to how these Ugandans were rescued. Now, still further on the top page, as the U.S. targets AIDS cash cut over, that is the anti-gay bill. In other words, cutting aid to the country, since the anti-gay bill is still not yet sure of what direction it's taking. Now, the United States has put Uganda on notice that, of course, it risks losing $400 million US. That is about 1.4 trillion in Washington's annual support to HIV/AIDS. And yes, related to that, 400 million, that's equivalent to 1.4 trillion. The Uganda is at risk of losing when it signs the anti-gay bill. Still, the European Union Parliament condemns Uganda over anti-gay law. Yes, and still we see that President Yoweri Museveni declines to assent to the anti-gay bill here. All right, now Janet's set to launch Aga Khan University construction. Yes, that is today. That's the First Lady and Education Minister Janet Museveni say to do that. And First Lady still tasks NCDC to review the primary curriculum, as we actually reviewed that earlier. And of course, a notice in here for the notice of the annual general meeting from MTN. We'll be checking out for those that are the responsible stakeholders. You can get yourself a copy in the Daily Monitor and take a look at the details regarding that very report. Now, still here in the national news section, 1 in 2 Ugandans jobless, says minister. Yes, 1 out of 2 Ugandans jobless, says minister. How true is that? We'll be checking out that as you dwell further, as you get yourself a copy, if that is of the Daily Monitor. Now, still government here warns schools against teaching during holidays. Teaching during holidays. Yes, I mean, schools are doing that so frequently, and sometimes students feel like they need some sort of a break away from holidays, but still somehow the schools try to squeeze. I don't know what the rush is all about, but I believe, but anyway, in some incidents, most especially for candidate classes, senior 4-1, senior 6, it can be a little bit understandable, but now comparing it to other levels, senior 1, senior 2, senior 3, there is no reason as to why they should be starting during holidays. And the students also need that time to refresh and of course do something else. Routine becomes a little bit frustrating and monotonous to the production and productivity of the children. Now, Uganda making commendable strides in oil and gas exploration. Commendable strides. Quite very positive in here regarding that, so you'll check out more of that as you get your copy of the Daily Monitor. Okay, of course here we see Fort Portal Hospital CT scan lying idle. That is over license. That's according to the staff. You'll be checking out more of that. A hospital scan lying idle over license. Not licensed, so it can operate. That's all that regarding that. But what do you really think about that matter in regard to that? Now, still here in the opinion section, we see that somebody says here that the oil industry can lift us to prosperity if we can save ourselves from ourselves. What does he mean by that? What does it mean to save ourselves from ourselves? That's in the opinion section. And that is in relation to why, of course, how best we can benefit from the oil. Now, something very interesting in the light of the day here, why unprocessed cassava from Kampala markets will kill you. Is that? Did you know that? It can kill you. You check your copy of the Daily Monitor, it will be giving you updates regarding that. Why unprocessed cassava from Kampala markets could kill you. Okay, very key and a very important aspect to take into great notice. Well, 26 minutes past 7, still driving your business here on the Daily Kickstarter. Smart means business. And now let's get into a short commercial break. Of course, still to come, I shall be taking a look at what's happening on the East African community and the international community in the world in terms of business matters. Good morning.